This week on AMC Movie Talk, we discuss Disney buying Lucasfilm and bringing us Star Wars Episode 7, Bryan Singer returning to the director's chair on X-Men Days of Future Past, Tom Cruise talking about Mission Impossible 5, and Star Wars, and a whole lot more. So stay tuned because AMC Movie Talk starts right now.
Welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. This episode was originally recorded on Wednesday, October the 31st, 2012 at the beautiful AMC Burbank 16 in Burbank, California. Star Wars. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Greetings and salutations, film fans, and happy Halloween. Welcome to this very special Halloween edition. I have nothing that I'm dressed up as other than a Star Wars hat of AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. As always, I'm your host. My name is John Campia. Joining us, as always, first of all, sitting to my immediate right, she is the chapeau donning from the caves of IGN. She's Miss Amirose Eisenbach. Amirose?
Thank you for having me.
You're the only one kind of festive.
You know, I had to hold it down for the rest of us here. It's Halloween.
Yes, except for at least in the right colors today, sitting to Amy Rose's right.
Yes, looking good.
There's Jenny's Wrath Cornet in the pumpkin orange.
Happy Halloween!
And thank you guys for joining us today. This, of course, is a bit of an early edition. Normally we record the AMC Movie Talks on Thursdays, but today, for several reasons, we decided to do it on Wednesday. And one of the big reasons we're doing it today has to do with the first story that we're going to cover. But before we do anything else today, we're going to get started with the way we start every single episode of AMC Movie Talk by getting you caught up to date in everything going on in the world of movie news with your news flash. The big news this week, of course, maybe possibly, without exaggeration, the biggest movie news in my lifetime, that Walt Disney Company has acquired Lucasfilm for $4.05 billion in stock and cash and is planning the next Star Wars film, Star Wars Episode 7, for a 2015 release. Lucas has been strategizing a retirement plan for some time and appears to have found a lucrative one. Following the historic news, Disney Chairman and CEO Bob Iger participated in a conference call about the transaction. One piece of news that emerged from the call is that Disney plans to release a new Star Wars movie every 2 years. 2 more films will follow the release of Star Wars Episode 7 in 2015, which will fulfill George Lucas's long-term goal of creating a 9-film series arc for the franchise. Lucasfilm already has a plan in place for the next 3 Star Wars movies. There is a lengthy treatment, and George Lucas himself will stay on board as a consultant only, with Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy ushering the franchise forward.
Franchise star and producer Tom Cruise could not be happier with the renewed interest in the adventures of Ethan Hunt following the massive success of Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. He said, "I started Mission Impossible hoping I could make many of them. It's a character that I can grow with. At the time, it was the most expensive film in the history of Paramount Pictures and the first film I was producing. Both the franchise and Cruise have obviously traveled a long journey since that time, but it looks as if his long-term goals for Hunt and Mission Impossible are coming to fruition. In fact, the actor has already begun conceptual work on Mission Impossible 5. Here's what he said about that. "We're already working on different images. I love traveling around and promoting different movies because it's so challenging. Because I'm always looking at different places and I always walk around to see the city. I look at architecture, subways, and coming up with different sequences. We have to wonder what kind of elaborate stunt sequence he's going to kind of be inspired to do in this next film, considering what he did in the last one with the Burj Khalifa." As to how far the franchise will go, Cruise said he'd love to keep making them as long as audiences will be interested.
The conversation about Walt Disney Company's purchase of Lucasfilm have largely centered on the studio's plans to move forward with Star Wars Episode 7, but Lucasfilm also has the rights to another iconic cinematic franchise, Indiana Jones. So does Disney plan to move forward with that franchise as well? Well, not for now. In a conference call earlier this afternoon, Disney Chairman and CEO Bob Iger said that Indiana Jones was not factored into the equation in terms of the purchase. Paramount Pictures still has the distribution rights for the franchise, though Disney now has the production rights. All of this may change in the future, but for now, there are no official plans to move forward with a new Indiana Jones film.
George Clooney is set to direct his 5th film with the upcoming drama and is amassing a powerhouse cast. Clooney himself will star alongside Daniel Craig, Bill Murray, Cate Blanchett, John Goodman, Hugh Bonneville, Bob Balaban and Jean Dujardin, who you may remember won Best Actor against Clooney. Jean Dujardin won for The Artist. Clooney was nominated for The Descendants. The adaptation of Robert M. Edsell's novel The Monuments Men, Allied Heroes, Nazi Thieves, and the Greatest Treasure Hunt in History, now to be just known as The Monuments Men, takes place during the final days of Nazi Germany as Adolf Hitler and the Nazis try to cover their tracks by destroying all of the artwork they had stolen during their rise to power. And as a group of art historians and museum curators try to rescue those works of art. Clooney will direct from a script he penned with partner Grant Heslov. The longtime collaborators will also co-produce from Smokehouse. This is the company behind Ben Affleck's Argo. And production on the film is set to begin on March 1st, 2013 in Europe.
Bryan Singer is officially set to direct X-Men Days of Future Past. Last week, we reported that X-Men First Class director Matthew Vaughn had decided not to return to direct the follow-up. Surprise, surprise, Matthew Vaughn backed out of directing a comic book film.
Aww.
To his hit film, that Bryan Singer, the director of the first two X-Men films and producer of First Class, may step in to helm Days of Future Past. Well, it has been confirmed that he, Bryan Singer, is indeed set to return to the director's chair on the popular franchise. Vaughn will remain aboard the new film as producer. X-Men Days of Future Past is scheduled for release in July 18th, 2014.
Check this out, sleight of hand lovers. A Magic Castle movie is in the works. If you've ever been to Los Angeles, then you may know that one of Hollywood's most beloved and unique landmarks is the private nightclub that I'm dying to go to, known as the Magic Castle.
You've never been?
Oh my God, let's talk later.
Wow.
Which is a clubhouse for the Academy of Magical Arts. It's an organization devoted to the advancement of the ancient art of magic. People are admitted to the castle via an invitation from a member. Once there, they are treated to a formal evening of dinner, drinks, and oh yes, magic in the chateau-style mansion filled with stages, elaborate labyrinth-like hallways, and 1920s decor. It is being reported that Ted Field and his company Radar Pictures is developing a feature film based on the famous landmark for 20th Century Fox. In addition, Magic Castles Inc. has signed with CAA for representation in areas including television, film, live events, video games, digital media, and merchandising. There's no official word on the storyline for the narrative, but the Magic Castle is rich with possibilities. Neil Patrick Harris, for those who don't know, serves as the president of the Academy of Magical Arts Board of Directors, but there's no indication as yet that he's actually involved with the film.
Oscar nominee Paul Giamatti of Cinderella Men, and of course, probably his most famous role, Sideways. Oscar winner Billy Bob Thornton, most famous for being weird, and Oscar nominee Jackie Weaver of Animal Kingdom have signed on for the John F. Kennedy feature film Parkland. Playtone partners, Tom Hanks and Gary Goetzman, are producing an association with Exclusive Media. Based on the book Reclaiming History, The Assassination of President John F. Kennedy by renowned author and former prosecutor Vincent Bugliosi, the film recounts a dramatic true story of the chaotic events that occurred at Parkland Hospital in Dallas on the day President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in 1963. Parkland will be filmed in Austin, Texas, and is destined for a 2013 theatrical release around the 50th anniversary of the historic assassination.
Olivia Wilde of Tron Legacy, Academy Award nominee Haley Steinfeld of True Grit, and Nicole Beharie of Shame and 42 are set to star in the period drama The Keeping Room for director Daniel Barber. The film tells the story of three Southern women, two sisters and one African-American slave, who left without men in the dying days of the Civil War are forced to defend their home from the onslaught of a band of soldiers who have broken off from the fast-approaching Union Army. Principal photography is scheduled to begin in March in North Carolina.
And that will do it for your news flash. Hey, listen, folks, before we go any further, stop what you're doing. Just pause for a second once you hear what I'm about to say. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you subscribe to AMC Theatres' YouTube channel, which you can find at youtube.com/AMC Theatres, chances are you're probably watching us right now on YouTube, then you need to subscribe to our channel. Keep up to date on all the movie news that we put up there. You'll keep up to date on all of our video editorials, and of course, keep you up to date on every episode of AMC Movie Talk, along with a few other goodies like trailers and trailer reviews and all these types of things you do. Now, also, by all means, if you really want to keep up to date on just the movie news really sharp, make sure you come over and subscribe to our RSS feed over at amctheaters.com/movie-news. We can keep up to date on all of our movie news. But right now, for now, click that subscribe button. Just go click it. I'll wait for you. Click it. You're back? Okay, good. We can move on. In the news flash, I mentioned this, and it sounds like I'm just being funny, but I'm being absolutely dead serious. I got a call. Dennis and I were in the office yesterday and got a call from our friend Soul Video, one of the executive producers over for the which brothers? The Fine Brothers.
The Fine Brothers.
The guys.
Also
the guys
known as John Green.
Also known as John Green, the company that does Kids React and Seniors React and some great stuff. Is
Teenagers React.
He gave me a call yesterday, about 5 seconds maybe after the news kind of semi-officially came out, and said, "Campia, Disney just bought Lucasfilm and they're making Star Wars Part 7. And I said some expletives. I said, "No, they did not." He goes, No, I'm serious. They did. And sure enough, I called one of my sources and they confirmed it. And about 2 hours later, the official press release came out. Walt Disney has bought Lucasfilm and they're making Star Wars Episode 7 in 2015. I was not exaggerating in the newsflash when I said this is probably, I cannot personally think of any single bigger piece of movie news in my career.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they were going to finally make Lord of the Rings, that was pretty big. Maybe some big casting change here or there. I can't think of anything that comes remotely close. Dennis, anything, like in all the years you've been covering movies and media and pop culture, anything come close to this?
No, but I mean, before it was the Disney buying Marvel was pretty big.
That was pretty big.
And then this trumps it by a lot.
By a lot.
Yeah.
But this, I think
not the price tag. That was same price tag, $4 billion.
Yeah.
I think wasn't the Marvel
Marvel was,
two?
I think, 2.
I think it was 4.
Was it?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see.
But I think the reason that this is so much bigger in a way is because we've lived with this franchise for so much longer. This is a franchise that is now, let me do my math, like 33, 34, how many years old?
Oh, long time.
So that's one thing, because this is so ingrained and it's so massive in our culture. You know what I mean? The references are everywhere. Cartoons are based, but also I think the huge thing is that this is the unique situation where George, it was a private, this is unheard of these days, that a franchise this huge was essentially in the hands of one man. And that man, George Lucas, gave up the reins, which is something, he said he was working towards a retirement plan, but I don't think anyone thought he would ever really do that.
We even talked about this on another show, if we ever thought that there would be another Star Wars film. And it's kind of, redemption of sorts, because the prequels, the 3 of them, like most of us who are big Star Wars fans, kind of felt, Jar Jar Binks is one of the most annoying characters ever. But with George Lucas not right now directing it and just as an executive producer, maybe there's hope. I don't know. It's kind of exciting, kind of scary.
I don't even know that he's on as an executive producer. I literally think he's just on as a special consultant.
Yeah, I thought he was a producer.
No, he's a consultant.
George
and he
Lucas,
was with the prequels.
Yeah, George Lucas put out actually really cool little video. As soon as the press release came out, George Lucas put out this video on YouTube.
Which you can find on AMC Theatres.
Yes, go to amctheaters.com/movie-news and you'll find that George Lucas conversation.
I posted it there yesterday.
Where he's talking to, I think, the new chairman of Lucasfilm.
He's talking to Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah, Kathleen Kennedy, who I believe was the vice chairman. Now that George has stepped away, she has been promoted by Disney to chairman position.
She's president of Lucasfilm now, and she's going to report to Iger.
Yeah, so she is now in charge of Lucasfilm.
Yeah, he basically handed the reins to her.
She's basically the Kevin Feige who runs Marvel.
Yeah.
Of Lucasfilm. She runs Lucasfilm all under the Disney umbrella.
Exactly.
Big chair to sit in.
And George Lucas he said, look, I always said I wouldn't make another one, and I'm not. But I never said I wasn't open to handing over the reins.
Yeah.
And apparently they are now talking to writers. They want to get a movie done. And apparently they are basing this on basically story outlines that George has had locked away in his little vault for a very, very long time. And I'm going to say this. As bad as the prequels were, there's no defending it. As bad as the prequels were, Dennis and I had this conversation last night, and I stand by anybody who disagrees with me on this. You simply don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, here we go.
If you sit down,
Team Reason,
and you look at the story of the prequels, if you took Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, and put them into two or 3 page synopsises, right? Those are solid, good stories. Yeah. And the whole arc of the prequels, overall story-wise, the story arc of the prequels are very, very good, really, if you look at what the story is. George Lucas has never lost his ability to come up with a great story.
Yeah, it's a great world.
George Lucas, though, has never acquired the skill of being a good director.
No, never.
Exactly.
And he put himself in a position, and we can go into a whole thing about what went wrong with the prequels, but I'll just sum up with this. He went into a thing where he's never liked directing. I mean, he loves directing, he doesn't like working with actors, and that comes across in the prequels.
That's fair.
Especially when he digitally remasters their facial expressions.
Does everything about it. And, you know, the thing with Lucas is, as he became the most powerful man in Hollywood, and if you don't have a respect for what George Lucas did in Hollywood and how he revolutionized Hollywood in almost every way, you need to read up on your film history. But the thing about Lucas is he never allowed himself to have a no man. He was surrounded himself with yes men, which means he never gave any, and this is my concern with Christopher Nolan, quite frankly, moving forward. But Lucas never gave anybody authority around him to say, hey, I'm going to give you the right to come to me and say, George, that's a bad idea.
Well, I think that happens. I really feel like that happens to a lot of our most beloved directors, because you see that it's such a consistent pattern that as they age, their movies get worse for many, many directors. And you look and you're like, why? You were able to do this. Why is it now that? You know? And listen, a movie is such a difficult thing it's so hard to make a movie, and it's such a weird, like, it's such an ephemeral process. There's so many cooks in the kitchen. There's so many things that go into making a great movie. You cannot guarantee it. But when you see that happening over and over again, I feel like that's just the pattern, is that they no longer have that resistance. And
that's why when people say to me, they go, when I ever hear people say, oh, the studio shouldn't interfere with the vision of the director. Bull. That's a recipe for disaster. Ultimately, that's a recipe for disaster. Now, you don't want a studio getting over-involved.
With their bad ideas.
But everybody needs some resistance. Everybody needs some checks and balances.
And some resistance.
You need to sharpen. That sharpens your focus and sharpens your ideas. And you know, sometimes you just need extra set of eyes around you who can see things that you can't.
Sure.
Are you excited for episode 7? Is what it comes down to?
And I'm glad you bring us to that, because we're getting off a bit of a rabbit trail. With all that being said, George Lucas losing his way, but still being a great, in grander terms, a really good storyteller, all that kind of stuff. I'm thrilled.
I just love Star Wars. It's absolutely one of my favorite franchises of all time. Even if the prequels sucked, I still saw them and I still liked them, even though I hated them at the same time, because I love that world. And I feel
it's like a bad abusive relationship.
It really is. It's like, it's not good for you, but you can't turn away at the same time. And number 7's my lucky number. I have faith, and I just love this world. I absolutely do. I was Princess Leia before I was like even walking, and it was awesome. I mean, I love this world, so I do have hope for it. And I love what Disney's done with Marvel. And that gives me hope, that they really do give it some love and some life, and we'll see what happens.
I mean, I think with Marvel though, and we've talked about this before, a lot of that credit really does have to go to Kevin Feige.
Of course.
And so a lot is now resting, and this is really interesting for me to look at, a lot is now resting on Kathleen Kennedy.
Oh, yeah.
Now, obviously, Kathleen Kennedy has a pretty great track record as a producer. You know what I mean? Like, she's no slouch.
She's right.
So I have a lot of hope, and I think, exactly, that when you look at the way the studio has helped nurture and usher Marvel along, you think maybe this is the best thing that ever could have happened to the Star Wars franchise. It's so funny when I talk to people that are friends of mine that don't work in this field, because it always gives me a good perspective, because I told them this news and they're like, what are you talking about? That's just crazy. That's going to be terrible. George Lucas isn't doing it. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's the best thing ever. Have you
the
seen?
Least involvement, the better. I mean, he should be in the back burner, but
it was time for this thing to be passed on. And, we spoke with Kofi from Screen Rant yesterday, and he said, I've been waiting for news like this for a long time. And I echo that. Look, this can't be exaggerated.
No.
Star Wars is the most influential anything my life has ever had. Without exaggeration, my earliest childhood memory, and I've told the story a million times, my earliest childhood memory is my mom taking me as a 5-year-old kid to go see the original Star Wars. My first cat's name was Luke Skywalker, my first pet. I mean, everything
you
about...
had a cat, Sean?
I did when I was a little kid. I did.
John doesn't like cats.
I don't dislike cats.
I'm a dog person.
I dislike Dennis's cat.
My cat is awesome. I don't know what you're talking about.
But
Your
I'm more
cat
of a-
is awesome.
What's your cat's name, Dennis?
Tigger.
It's pretty sweet.
Beelzebub. Anyway, I'm more of a dog guy now. But I mean, it is
just
the,
go
the
Wicked.
single most influential creative thing, artistic thing
yeah.
ever in my life. It's what got me into
and
movies.
so many genres it influenced. I mean,
It needed George Lucas. Look, people seem to think it's one thing or other. Either you absolutely love George Lucas or you hate him. No, there is a thing in here that you pay respect to George Lucas. You honor him for what he has done, that he is one of the best creative geniuses the industry has ever seen. He revolutionized everything, not just sci-fi. He revolutionized
many
the art
genres.
of sound. He pushed digital. You think digital media would be where it is today if George Lucas didn't force the entire entertainment industry to move towards digital filmmaking with the Phantom Menace? You're nuts. He revolutionized, I mean, with LucasArts, he changed entertainment.
have you ever been to Skywalker Ranch?
I have.
I haven't.
It was like
I'm
my
dying to
travel.
go.
It was my travel to Mecca when I got
really
to
wanna
go,
go.
and I got to sit on George Lucas's car.
Oh, give me a break.
I was about to say, and I got to sit on George Lucas's
His
lap and make a wish for Christmas.
He said, "Call me Papa George,
it
John."
was a Christmas miracle.
But with all that being said, I mean, if I kept bronze busts in my living room, George's
realize-
would be the first I would have. But let's be realistic. It was time. It was 15 years ago was time for George to say, "Hey, I've done my part.
Take my world. I'm gonna step back a
I'm
little
going
bit.
to step aside
Yeah.
now." And it's time. I think this is
time.
fantastic.
The less the better.
I was especially excited to hear George say they're basing this off some outlines that I've had in the vaults for a while.
Right.
To me, that's the best of every
Absolutely.
situation. George's story. Now let somebody else take it, run with it, adapt it, and execute it.
So who to direct?
Perfect.
Well, okay, so
That's the
becomes-
next. That's
that
what
is
I'm
Yeah.
missing.
the
Who
next
directs
big
Star
question.
Wars?
Who direct?
Well, here's the thing too. I have to
Ben
say
Affleck.
this. I will
Boom.
I will agree with you. I will agree with you that the basic story idea for the prequels was strong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a strong
Execution,
character.
poor.
But I also have to say this, that I think that really the reason the first, what I call the first three, which are whatever episode,
The original trilogy?
the original
Yeah.
trilogy. Thank you.
Episodes 4, 5, and
Episodes
6.
Best
4,
films
5, and
ever.
6. Frankly, that all irritated the crap out of me because I was like, you don't get to go back in time. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, you do. If
But
you're Star Wars.
if you're George Lucas, you do. In fact, get to go back in time. However, I will say this, that I do think that, and certainly there's a whole entire series about it from PBS about the power of myth and how, George Lucas spent time with Joseph Campbell, my spiritual grandfather. But I do think that the first Star Wars series was tapping into a kind of really deep fundamental mythology that hits us at a core level as human beings.
Oh, yeah.
The hero's journey. And that's always going to resonate in a far deeper way than watching the villain's journey. Because even if that's
both,
where,
'cause Darth
even
Vader's
if
the
that's,
man.
well, hang on though. Even if that's where we're going in our life, even if that's where people do go in their life, that's not what you're aiming for in your life. Do you know what I mean? And so Luke Skywalker going into his cave and cutting off his own head and facing his dark side and reconciling that and becoming a stronger man is the journey that every single human being wants to go on in their psychology. Do you know what I mean? In your life. So I feel like it's very, very difficult and too much to expect for these other films to resonate in quite the same way, because Harry Potter's the same story. You know what I mean? It's the hero's journey. It's Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings to some degree, although it's a little bit different than the other ones, the tropes.
Still
I mean,
hero's
it's the
journey.
Bible. It's every sort of mythological journey follows that kind of story, same tropes.
But see, I'll disagree with you on that a little bit. In general, I see where you're coming from, and I agree. But one of I think the most brilliant parts, if not the only brilliant part of the prequels, was that the prequels changed the entire perception of the Star Wars universe. With Star Wars, Empire, and Return of the Jedi, it is a story about Luke Skywalker. At its core, it's a story about Luke Skywalker. With episodes 1, 2,
He's
and
the
3,
hero.
with episodes 1, 2, and 3 added to that, you realize Star Wars as a whole is the story of Anakin Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is something that resonates, the idea of now looking at the rise, fall, and redemption of Anakin Skywalker, aka Darth Vader, in principle, is brilliant, because I think there's something, you said the word resonates when we're talking about the hero's journey, and I agree with you, but I also believe that the other side, there's something very relatable to me about the idea of flawed humanity who falls, but there is redemption.
Mm-hmm.
And like, to me, one of the greatest cinematic moments in film history for me is that great scene at the end of Return of the Jedi when, spoiler alert, when Darth Vader,
if you haven't seen it by now, you're not
looking
worthy.
down at his son about to die at the hands of the Emperor, and turns and takes the Emperor and kills the Emperor to save his son, turning his back on everything he'd been doing for the previous 30 years, is one of the most iconic, redemptive, symbolic, beautiful moments, culminating a film franchise, at least it was at the time. And so I think in principle, that idea of revealing that Star Wars is about Anakin Skywalker as a whole, I thought that was brilliant.
Absolutely.
Because of that.
Anakin.
But they blew it.
They blew it.
Yeah,
they blew it. But Anakin and Magneto kind of have that same effect with me.
Yes.
Because they're so rich and complicated characters. And you watch, they weren't always bad. You know, they came from this whole other world, and you watch the evolution, and it's so rich in the storyline. And it's a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, no, I agree
That's why I
with
love
you.
both of those characters like that. And then, I mean, yeah.
But let's get back to the question.
the good,
Let's get
good,
back to
bad.
the question here. We have to get back to this question. We got to get
Yes.
back on track. Who
Star
directs?
Who directs Star Wars? Well, who has the brass steel
Yeah, this is a big
You know what?
thing
I always say
to walk into.
donkey?
I hate it when people say only one
Wankas.
guy can direct. Only Peter Jackson can do it this. Only Christopher Nolan. I hate it when people do that.
I'd be down with Peter Jackson.
But only one guy can do this and do it right.
No,
and of
I
course,
think
it's
Benny
not.
could.
That's not really true.
The
Only one
bar
guy-
is lower from
but
the
only
prequels,
one guy
so-
comes to my mind. Only one guy comes to my mind. I'm sure there are other good choices.
Dun, 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 dun.
It's the obvious one. It's Steven Spielberg. Spielberg has been a part of. Spielberg directed actually the last segment of the final Star Wars movie. The whole battle sequence between Obi-Wan and Anakin Skywalker. Steven Spielberg actually directed that. Steven Spielberg has been like
certainly Kathleen Kennedy being there.
Interesting.
Spielberg has been an incredibly close friend with Lucas and confidant over the years. Spielberg directed Lucas's Indiana Jones films. Spielberg understands this universe.
And it saved his career.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Spielberg
it did.
wanted to direct a Star Wars film before. I think the choice is
He's
clear.
good at epics.
Steven Spielberg, on his own, running with a Star Wars film, would maintain the essence of what Star Wars has always been. It puts it into the hands of what I consider to be the greatest director of all time.
Even with his last couple films, you think he's maintained
Lincoln?
that bar? I haven't seen Lincoln yet.
Warhorse?
You liked Warhorse?
I loved Warhorse.
Well,
I did.
let's talk about this, because Kathleen Kennedy, obviously,
He's good
and
at
this is
epics.
something that I noticed. I was like, interesting, really, Kathleen Kennedy, interesting, because Kathleen Kennedy has been Steven Spielberg's producer forever.
Yes.
And
Be very
you know,
easy.
she worked on everything. I mean, everything. Like, I mean, she's done projects outside of Amblin, obviously, but she produced. Let's just look
All
at
the way
this:
back
Lincoln,
in, yeah.
Warhorse, Jurassic Park, AI. Let's go all.
No, I think he would be fantastic. I mean, he's really
amazing
good at
stories.
bringing
She's
really
produced
rich
everything.
worlds to life.
E.T.
Goonies.
But so I did notice that, and I thought, okay, Kathleen Kennedy, interesting. I wonder if Spielberg's going to step in at this point, because I mean, they notoriously always work together. I mean, like I said, she does take projects on outside of Spielberg, but traditionally she's working with him. So I think that would be interesting. But at the same time, I gotta say, to your point, I mean, I don't think that the franchise would suffer from a fresher voice. I really don't. I mean, Steven Spielberg's a great director, no doubt.
Yeah.
But if what we're looking for is a renewed energy in this franchise,
Maybe
then is
younger,
it really
hot
the
director
best
going.
idea to have the person that has been this connected to Lucas for this many years?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a good
Yes.
question. It's a good question to bring
Yeah.
up. But I think the answer to that question is yes. Steven Spielberg Look, a lot of people are, when you bring up Spielberg in relation to Star Wars, a lot of people are quick to point to the last Indiana Jones film.
Yes.
Understandable, but that was a different set of circumstances.
Of course.
You're still dealing in a film where George Lucas was completely in control. And George Lucas, as a executing storyteller, has lost his way a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
And that wasn't going to work no matter what. Spielberg, I believe, is still the best in the business. I believe if you're going to go with Disney, you have to maintain the essence of what Star Wars is. And I just don't think there's anybody who's going to be more qualified to do that. That's not to say that they can't hire somebody else to come along who won't do a spectacular, wonderful job. Absolutely. But I'm saying beforehand, from the outside looking in, it seems to me to be a no-brainer. You go with Steven Spielberg
It does
if
seem
Spielberg
like a
will take
no-brainer.
it.
But someone else might breathe, more
what-
life into it and kind of jumpstart this franchise again.
Yeah,
'Cause that's obviously what's happening.
What's the story, Glory?
What's the story of the film?
Yeah.
Well, okay. I mean, to me, and I really believe this is not probable at all, sadly.
From the vault.
Because the story I want to see told means you have to get Harrison Ford back. It means you have to get Mark Hamill back. It means you have to get Carrie Fisher
That
back.
would be amazing.
You can get 2 out of 3.
But the one
odds.
I would want to see, and I have been literally on my knees shaking my fist to the heavens for decades now, wanting to see this, is the Heir to the Empire series. Now, for those of you who do not know Heir to the Empire, it is the quintessential series of sequel novels, Star Wars novels written by Timothy Zahn. And it follows the events of Return of the Jedi and the political chaos that the universe is in after the fall of the Empire. And it introduces that the Empire is still there. Like, the Emperor died, but we forget the Empire is still there and comes under control of this amazing character. Dennis, have you ever read Heir to the Empire? You read the comic series, right?
Yeah, I read the comic book adaptation of Heir to the
I do
Empire.
too.
It was
It's one
great.
of the only comic book
I
series
read
I've
the
the whole
novels,
thing.
and it's got this amazing, not quite Darth Vader level character, but getting close. This character named Admiral Zahn.
It's pretty badass.
Or Thrawn. Timothy Zahn is the guy who wrote it. Admiral Thrawn.
Throne.
Who takes over the Empire, and it's this plot to kill Luke Skywalker and get control. It is so good. It is so good. All other Star Wars novels pretty much suck, but the Heir to the Empire series is fabulous. But it means having to get all of them back, and so because of that, I don't see.
God,
it
that'd be
happening.
amazing if they got them all back, though.
Yeah, Roth, what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, that it is really kind of, I don't know, because it's like, do you go into, there was a storyline that I'm just such a girl this way. There was a storyline where Leo DiCaprio, Princess Leo, if you will,
getting awkward.
where Leia was training to be a Jedi, and I always wanted to see that. And we can't see that unless you recast her as a younger actress at this point.
Yeah.
So no, obviously that would end up in burning rage. That would be chaotic.
Oh
But
I don't know.
goodness,
People
yeah.
love
I
Princess Leia.
but I always
Or Leo.
really, really, really wanted to see that. I know that's like not going to happen.
It'd be a side story.
It would be it wouldn't be any story because you couldn't do it now.
Yeah,
You know
and
what I
ultimately,
mean?
her kids in the
We
novels.
like to go back in time. And do
her and
prequels
Han's
again.
kids
We can't
become
recast her. Though. You
Right.
can't recast
No.
Han and Leia.
become come under the tutelage of Luke, and they become the start of the new Jedi Order. And
Yeah.
ultimately, they have Han and Leia have twins that Luke starts to train, and then they ultimately have a third child that they name Anakin. And there's a whole bunch of stories go off from there. But really, at the core, though, Heir to the Empire is amazing. And we've spent all of our time on this. We need to move on quick. We're just going to go through 2 other topics here really fast. But
We
jump in the
are?
comments. Let us know what you
Obviously,
think.
we're
We're going to go
excited for Star
quickly.
Wars.
We're going to go quickly on these next 2, which. Had it not been for the biggest movie news of all time, being the Disney acquisition of Star Wars and Star Wars Part 7 coming, this next story would have been considered huge news. Bryan Singer, one of my favorite directors in Hollywood, is coming back to the director's chair for the X-Men franchise, and he will be directing the sequel to X-Men First Class called X-Men Days of Future Past.
Yep.
Bryan Singer, in my opinion, as I've already mentioned, I think he's one of the best directors in Hollywood. He resurrected, and I use that term very literally, he resurrected the superhero comic book genre with X-Men.
I don't don't think you can use that term literally about a franchise.
It was dead.
I think it's still,
and he brought it back to life.
I think it's still figurative.
Yeah.
No, I think if you're talking about a living creature, then it would have to be figurative. But in talking about an entity, it was dead, and he brought it back to life. The comic book genre was dead. It was coming off the ultimate disaster of Batman and Robin, which killed the superhero genre for years, and then X-Men came along and gave us it was the forerunner. All great superhero films. You happy? Did you like the Avengers? Did you like Iron Man? Did you like Spider-Man? Well, you owe everything to X-Men. The first X-Men film directed by Bryan Singer. I like the second one even more. And of course, the third one, Bryan Singer wasn't there.
Which is good because that movie was awful and Brett Ratner is to blame, not him.
But I mean, then he did
it's not
Valkyrie.
Good because I don't think it would have been bad if he had been
Exactly.
Valkyrie.
But I hated that movie, so if he was attached to it, I would be more fearful for the second one. But I love Bryan Singer too, and that one's not a pain under on his resume.
But I don't think X-Men 3 is as.
I
don't think it's good.
Like it.
I don't
you
think
have
it's
to remember,
good.
X-Men is literally my favorite comic book franchise ever.
Right.
So I'm harsh, but I love X-Men First Class, and I know Matthew Vaughn is still going to be a producer on this. So I think the two of them together.
They've switched places because Bryan Singer was
awesome.
The producer on X-Men First Class.
And
I thought Valkyrie that Bryan Singer did with Tom Cruise was highly underappreciated.
I agree.
I thought that was a
really
wonderful film. And you know what? For all the flack that Superman Return gets,
it wasn't that bad,
and understandably so. I loved that movie for what it was. Now it was a terrible.
Lex Luthor was terrible in it.
I like Kevin Spacey no matter what.
I do too. I like Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor, but I don't think I don't think Singer.
It was more
handled Lex
comical
Luthor right.
and not as good of a villain as he's supposed to be.
But here's the thing: it failed.
Brandon Routh.
It failed as a comic book movie.
I think the Smallville Lex Luthor's.
I never watched Smallville. I will admit it.
As a comic book movie, Superman Returns failed because Superman just fought. He never fought anything. He just carried stuff.
And a
lifting
steel
heavy
will
stuff.
redeem.
That was his thing. Lifting heavy stuff was super. So I get it. On a comic book movie level, it failed. I get it. But as a drama, as a character, I look at this guy who's basically a god, struggling with more what it means to be human and having human problems and struggles. He can't. I mean, I loved it on that level. I really like Bryan Singer. I love hearing that he's back to direct the next X-Men
Usual
film.
Suspects
I'll
is
be
one
honest
of my
with you.
favorite movies of all time.
Oh my God, how did I miss that one?
All time.
Usual Suspects is in my top 3 films of all time.
Me too.
Another Bryan Singer film.
Yep.
Honestly, I like this news better than if Matthew Vaughn stayed, and everybody knows how much I love Matthew Vaughn.
Yeah.
Bryan Singer should be in the director's chair for
two
any X-Men
together,
film.
I'm excited.
I feel like I would be more excited, to be honest. If not that I'm not happy with this, because I am, because I really love the first 2 X-Men films, and I really do like Bryan Singer. I'm not huge on Superman Returns, but
right.
Hey, whatever.
Most people aren't.
Yeah.
But I feel like I would be more excited because Matthew Vaughn created a real specific world with the prequel. He created a real specific aesthetic and tone that is unique and distinctive.
My favorite,
from the other X-Men films. So I think I would be more excited if he were to return somehow to that world, to that iteration.
But
to
maybe
that
Matthew Vaughn, as a producer, will.
I'm saying Bryan Singer to that time period in the X-Men universe, and then I would have liked to see Matthew Vaughn kind of stick through with the sequel. I understand why he didn't, to some degree, because I think that as a filmmaker, for one thing, he's probably just like, listen, I need fresh material. I need to move on. He didn't want to stick around for the sequel for Kick-Ass. I think he just wanted to move on and do something different. And I think also there's partially you take a big risk with a sequel, and maybe you just think it's better to have fresh eyes on it, Yeah. But like they worked, like you said, they're switching places. I think it'll still be a good film. I just really liked the tone he created.
But that's what
remember,
I'm saying
that was under Bryan Singer.
Yeah,
Bryan Singer was a producer on that film.
He was a producer on that film, but I mean, if you've seen other Matthew Vaughn, and I think Matthew Vaughn is a great director.
Yeah.
I really love his films as well.
Stardust.
And so Stardust, exactly. So
Kick-Ass, Stardust, X-Men.
They're both really awesome.
Yeah.
But they have different tones.
They do have different
that they bring,
tones.
and that felt very much to me like Matthew Vaughn's voice.
And I like Matthew Vaughn's, to your point, I like Matthew Vaughn as a director better for this franchise because X-Men First Class was my favorite. But Bryan Singer, I know he can do it, and having Matthew Vaughn still as part of it, I think it's going to be awesome.
I will say this as a final parting note on the everybody knows how much I love Matthew Vaughn. I think Stardust is the single most underrated film of the last 10 years. I don't think it gets the love it absolutely. It's the new Princess Bride. You should watch it. It's amazing. All you have to do is look back and find my review of X-Men First Class to know how much I love that. But I will say this. Vaughn blew in X-Men First Class. He blew every character other than our core characters. He did the Charles Xavier, Magneto, that whole thing. Fabulous,
fantastic.
You could have cut everybody else out of that film. I thought the kids were terrible. I really
Most
do.
of the kids were pretty bad.
And I thought they were poorly written. I thought the way they incorporated in the story, how they went out and got them, all that kind of seemed really weak. But I'm just saying the part that I thought he blew. Overall, it's great, and I loved it. And I'm curious to see Bryan Singer and Matthew Vaughn now swapping spots, see where they go. To me, though, X-Men will always be Bryan Singer's.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see. It'll be very interesting to see. Okay, let's move on to this real quick. It shouldn't come as a surprise that, as we mentioned in the news flash, that Tom Cruise is already starting to put together his ideas for Mission Impossible 5. And he said he wants to do more beyond that. He's got Jack Reacher coming out. He's got All You Need Is Kill coming out.
Yep.
He's working for some reason on a reboot of Van Helsing. He's got a lot going on, all action oriented. The dude is 50 years old. He looks amazing.
Looks amazing.
Yeah.
How much longer, though, is the reason he's talking about multiple Mission Impossibles, doing Jack Reacher, doing all these action-oriented films right now, besides the fact that whatever that rock and roll film he just did was terrible.
Rock of Ages.
Rock of Ages.
I didn't see it.
Do you think it's because he's quite aware that he's 50 and he's got to get all these under his belt now?
It's two things.
I
I think that his career really took a hit a few
he's
years
trying to
ago,
rebuild
and that
his
it was
image.
floundering. And then
Would you say it needed to be resurrected? Literally?
figuratively, yes, not literally, but figuratively, yes, it needed a resurrection, and it got it. I mean, and it really.
I liked Ghost
Mission
Protocol a
Impossible
lot.
Ghost Protocol helped to resurrect it quite
Did
a
you
little.
like it?
Yeah, I did. I liked it a lot.
I liked it a lot.
But it was a lot of fun. So I think, yes, now that he's got sort of that cachet back and that he's empowered to make these kinds of films again, he's going to make as many as he can. I think he also really loves this franchise a lot. I think it's his baby, and he wants to move forward with it. But he is going to be able to do this for a long, long time. Let's face it. He's 50, sure. But as long as the portrait in his attic is doing the aging for him, he's going to be able to continue on.
You've been saving that one. You thought of that one up last
really
night,
didn't.
and you've been sitting on it. That's good.
He's a good action star. I mean, he is. All the other things surrounding him and his personal life and all the weird stuff, sure, we get it. But, I like him as an action star. I also loved him in Tropic Thunder. I thought he was hilarious.
I'm glad you brought up Tropic Thunder because, let's just get this out of the way. Despite all the craziness that he's had and the stuff that ultimately really put his whole career in a hole.
His marriage, his career.
He's not just a great action star. He is a great actor.
He really
actor. Never take that away from him. But to me, Tropic Thunder is to him what Anchorman was to Steve Carell. People look at The 40-Year-Old Virgin as being the thing that made Steve Carell a star. That's sort of true. But The 40-Year-Old Virgin doesn't happen at all for Steve Carell if it wasn't for his performance in Anchorman, where he was a support character that just made everybody
Rick is the
break
man.
out in laughter. And that's now, of course, even before that, you had him in the Bruce Almighty, which with that one scene.
Evan.
But then he did Anchorman, and Anchorman was the thing that made everybody go, "This guy is a comedic star." Then he got 40-Year-Old Virgin. Tropic Thunder is the film for Tom Cruise that made everybody want to give him a mulligan. Tom Cruise was so self-defacing, so funny, so amazing in that. That
role.
little end credits thing when he's
so good.
dancing
with
and
his
all,
chain.
that's
so
the one
good.
that made everybody go, okay,
we
we'll
like
give you
again.
another shot.
Yeah, let's do this.
And then Mission Impossible comes and blows everybody away.
That was the smartest move for his career
Yes.
at the time.
I
so
feel like
smart.
he's the best. When I like Tom Cruise the best is when, and here's a movie that a lot of people didn't like. Dennis and I really liked this movie. It's called Night and Day.
I loved, aside from the last 10
didn't
minutes,
love it, but
I
I
love
liked
Night
it.
and Day.
Yeah.
Because I
good.
love Tom Cruise when he is doing the combination of the comedic action movie. Where there's comedic elements and things like that. Because I think he's really funny. He's a really good dramatic actor too. Again, you can't take Born on the 4th of July and Magnolia away from him. But I love it when he's being funny. I really do. But I love it when he's being an action hero and funny.
He's a great actor.
I think that Ethan Hunt has more of that available to him than Jack Reacher will.
I agree. And he's very likable.
I'm just predicting. I actually think Jack Reacher will have more of that.
Really?
I think it'll play more to the lighthearted nature. Because Ethan Hunt is in the Mission Impossible series. While I think you're absolutely right, it does have some of that charm to it as well.
Yeah.
But it really plays more, especially as the franchise has moved forward, it really plays more to his serious side.
It does.
I think Jack Reacher is going to give us a little bit more. While being serious is going to give us a little bit more whimsy from Tom Cruise. I'm just predicting. I don't know that for a fact. So I don't really know. Bottom line, Mission Impossible 5 is coming. I'm excited by the news. And Tom Cruise is a great actor. And I cannot. What's the name of his character in Tropic Thunder?
Les Grossman.
Les Grossman.
They talked. They said they were going to do a Les Grossman movie.
Oh, they should.
I will be the first in line for that. You know what? Here's my favorite thing from Les Grossman. I remember. I think it was the MTV Movie Awards, which are horrible and terrible, and nobody should ever support them by watching them. And yet I'm about to tell you about a skit that you should go and watch on YouTube or something.
It's working.
He played Les Grossman. He was as the character Les Grossman, and Will Smith has brought Jaden Smith to him for something, right? And Les Grossman's trying to teach Jaden Smith some lessons, and Will Smith's just standing in the background. And so he starts to fight with Jaden Smith, who just had the Karate Kid coming out, of course. And it finishes with Jaden Smith having him down with Grossman's arm, tied back. He goes, but Grossman starts yelling at him, "If you're going to be a man, finish it! Finish it!" And Jaden's like looking at Will Smith, and Will Smith's like, "Finish it." So Jason was like, and breaks his arm. And Tom Cruise was like, yeah.
He's such a good
so
character.
Good. Anyway, we need to move on. Leave us your thoughts in the comment section below. Hey, listen, folks, just want to remind you that one of the films opening up in AMC Theatres everywhere this weekend is the fantastic best animated film of the year, Wreck-It Ralph. Now, this last week I had the privilege of going down and sitting and talking with John C. Reilly about the film. It opens in AMC Theatres everywhere. We want to share that conversation with John C. Reilly with you right now. So here, check it out. First of all, congratulations on the film. It is one of the most entertaining films I have seen all year. It's
Thank you so much.
Good. And, sometimes you see these animated films and they put celebrities in to do one of the voices, and it's like, it's interchangeable. That didn't need to be this person. You are Wreck-It Ralph.
Oh.
You brought so much charm and personality. Talk about, when you first sat down and started talking about the character, what you wanted to bring to him.
Well, what I wanted to bring to him was a personal investment in the character. I've been offered a lot of animated things over the years, and I've turned them all down because it just seemed like, just showing up and reading a piece of paper and then going home. They get to have all the fun turning it into something fun. All the creative part of it happens when you're not there. So Rich Moore, the director of the movie, really encouraged me early on. He's like, no, it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be this kind of like just, get your scenes one at a time and read them off. Like, you can be part of the story of this movie. You can be part of the development of this character if you want to be. As much as you want to give, that's how much we want. So I even went in at one point, the animators were shocked. I went and did this whole Q&A with all the animators, and then I did these motion studies, which they videotape me moving around I'm not 10 feet tall. I don't weigh 943 pounds yet. So they videotape me doing this stuff, like doing impressions of my uncles and stuff, these old football guys, the way they'd move around. And they were just thrilled. They're like, no actor has ever done that before. No one ever comes and spends that much time. And I was like, well, why not? you want it to be as good as it can be. And so, between that, that personal investment that I had in it and getting to work and improvise in a live way, not just separately recorded, but in a live way with the other actors, I think it ended up really creating a character that has that real personal, handmade feel that hopefully that you're talking about.
This movie is ridiculously charming and clever and witty and funny, but what I thought made it really special, what makes Wreck-It Ralph such a special film, is that it also has, and you don't realize it till about halfway through the film, has a lot of heart that comes from this relationship between you and Sarah Silverman and the characters there. And there's the one scene in particular that I just call the great betrayal scene that really makes you realize you care about these characters. What do you think was the key for the performances of you and both Sarah to make audiences care about that relationship so much?
Well, I think what I think is really touching about it is they both start off pretty selfish characters. Ralph is determined to have people see him in a different way, and he wants to get this medal to show them all, And that's kind of a wrong-headed way to go about changing your life. And Sarah's character is so just single-mindedly focused on winning this race, and she's going to show all those kids that were mean to her. And I don't know. To me, that was one of the touching things, is that through seeing each other, really seeing each other, they both realize, like, wow, they kind of hold a mirror up to each other. Like, maybe you could change this part of yourself, rather than trying to change the way other people see you. Why don't you work on who you are, the way you see your own self. So I thought that was really moving, and I just love I don't have a kid sister, but I really love that relationship in the movie. Like, oh, shut up, like this kind of begrudging partnership that they form, and then the real genuine care that they end up having for each other at the end of the story. Really, I found it really moving.
Once again, Wreck-It Ralph opens in AMC Theaters everywhere this Friday. Head on over right now to www.amctheaters.com to buy your tickets for Wreck-It Ralph right now, or any other film that you want to see in AMC Theaters this weekend. Go check them out. Well, listen, every week we like to take a few minutes to open it up to the mailbag. You can email us, by the way, 24/7 at AMCMovieTalk@gmail.com. Once again, that's AMCMovieTalk@gmail.com. Then every week we select a couple of the emails that you guys send in, read them on air, and we let you guys basically dictate the direction of the show. So we've got a couple picked out, and Roth's got them over there. So Roth, what do we got?
All right, this is from Sean C. We've sort of answered this one, but let's read it
Again
anyway.
and
Is the announcement of Disney purchasing Lucasfilm and releasing a new Star Wars film in 2015 the best, worst, or most emotionally confusing announcement you've ever heard?
In 2 words, cautiously optimistic.
I'll go beyond that. I'm not going to say best I've ever heard, but I'm going to say best I've heard all year.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I'm
No
thrilled
question.
with this news. I can't put... Look, actually, Dennis, you and I were talking about this yesterday. I don't understand... Look, I can understand people looking and saying, I'm cautious about this, or maybe this won't work out so well. I don't understand people looking at this news going, this is terrible news.
I
Like,
don't either, because I want more Star
But what do
Wars.
you think when you read people who are saying, like, this is awful news? Like, how do you react to that?
Well, I don't understand where they're coming from, because where's the downside to it? Because Lucas and whatever they've done with the Star Wars franchise, they've already taken it down to a very low. You've seen the Kinect dancing, Han Solo and all that stuff. and Disney will probably maintain that stuff because they're going to want to make money, right? So they're going to keep that low, kind of really like mass audience kid stuff. But with what they've done with the Marvel universe, they're going to keep that quality with the Star Wars universe. They're not stupid.
No,
they
they're
know
not.
they need to make money. They need to make these
Incredibly
movies
smart.
good, and they want to sell merchandise and all this stuff. So I just don't see where the downside to this
That
is.
brings another excellent point up, too, because in true Disney fashion, we're going to have a Star Wars attraction at Disneyland, Epcot, whatever, which is
a Star
awesome.
Wars attraction at Disneyland, my friend.
Oh yeah, Star Tours.
Star Tours.
You are
I
going to get
mean,
you're going to get Star Wars Land.
That's
I
classic.
guarantee you,
Star Wars
or
Land.
the
Star
Star Wars
Wars Land.
Galaxy. They're going to call
And
it
then
or
John
something.
will move there, and that will be the last we have
Death
ever
Star?
heard
I
from
want
him.
to.
Yep.
Like,
This is where, because I talked to people that had that reaction, like, and I wanted to see how they would react. I actually think it is just that they don't sometimes understand how the business actually functions, because they weren't connecting the dots that Disney owned Marvel that was behind the Avengers. I mean, they weren't connecting those
really?
dots really. So I think without that that sort of understanding, you may not understand how this is a great thing and this is a great company to have taken over this franchise.
And one of the big objections I keep reading, folks, listen to me here. One of the big objections I keep reading is people going, oh, Disney's going to take it and make it family friendly and blah,
they're
blah,
going to
blah.
make it a princess movie.
Wait a second. What do you think the original Star Wars trilogy was?
Yeah.
They were PG movies.
Yeah.
They were family-friendly PG
With a
movies.
princess.
But if you watch the Avengers, you know they're not afraid to get a little bit darker.
Yeah.
They're not afraid to push those limits of PG. So I think those fears that they're going to make it family-friendly, first of all, you don't understand that Empire Strikes Back was a PG movie.
Yeah.
Despite how dark the tone was, it was still PG. And Disney is capable of doing that. And I just...
They are.
So I reject
And
that
now
argument.
Princess Leia is part of the Disney princesses. How can you not love
Yes!
that?
Disney Princess Leia.
How can you not love that?
Princess Leia.
Disney Princess
All
Leia.
right,
Your
let's move
argument
on.
is rejected.
Let's move on to the next question.
Okay, wait. I want to say one thing before we totally move on, just to clarify. When I was talking about Star Wars Episode 1 through 3 and the hero's journey, it's a real specific thing.
Episodes 4 through 6, The Hero's Journey.
God damn it. I hate that. 4 through 6, The Hero's Journey, the first 3 that were made. That's a really specific thing that's like in mythology that has certain markers that have been hit over the time. He has a mysterious birth. He has magical parents. They come back. He has to find a guru like Yoda. There's certain steps that the hero goes through that you can trace in Star Wars and Harry Potter and franchises like that. That's all I meant with that. Okay, moving on. Hi, everyone. I love the show.
Who's this from?
This is from Justin B. Not Bieber.
Are you
Justin
sure?
B. I don't know. Maybe. Hi, everyone. I love the show and had a quick question. One of my favorite movie-going experiences of the year is AMC's Best Picture Showcase. Awesome.
Well played.
I know it's still early for a full roster of movies you think will be nominated for Best Picture, but as of right now, which movies do you think should make that?
Definitely Argo.
Before we go any further, for those of you who don't know what the AMC Best Picture Showcase is, every year just prior to Oscar time, I think it's usually the weekend before, AMC Theatres does this series where they will show every film back in theater that has been nominated for Best Picture. And like for one ticket price, you can get a pass. You can either buy individual tickets or you can get one ticket that is a pass for all of them where you can go and watch all the films that have been nominated for Best Picture. It's one, I know every year at the Oscars, some people are like lamenting, man, I didn't get these 3 films that were nominated for Best Picture, I didn't get to see. Well, now you can, like the weekend before the Oscars. It's great. Keep your eyes open for when it comes up. So anyway, you were about to say about what should be
Definitely
nominated.
Argo. Fantastic film. Directing, acting, cinematography, everything.
I think
loved
it's
it.
already a lock to be
It's
for a
there.
nomination.
Lincoln, same
will
thing.
get a nomination.
Wreck-It Ralph for animated, no question.
Oh, for animated, yeah. I think I mean Lincoln I think was a lock a year ago
Daniel
to get a
Day-Lewis
nomination.
was a lock a year ago.
Whether I mean listen, I'm not even saying whether people think it deserves it or not. It was definitely going to get one, and
He's
that's it. You know what I
my
mean?
top 3 favorite actors of all time. He can do me no wrong. I mean, when he gets in a
but
role,
for Best
it's
Picture,
done.
I'm talking about that.
Yeah.
I whether people listen, not everyone loved War Horse. You know, and
I liked
think
it, I
with
didn't love
Lincoln,
it.
you put that sort of group together, you're going to get an Oscar nomination. Hey, I absolutely think that a movie that is bombing right now deserves a nomination, and that is Cloud Atlas. It deserves that nomination because just the fact that this movie exists is crazy.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they were able to pull it off and it's a cohesive piece of filmmaking.
I feel like people
is
love
bananas.
it or hate it. It's very extreme. There's no like in between ground.
This is an undertaking of magnificent proportions, and I'm not sitting here and saying that that's the one that should win. I do think it deserves a nomination.
Now,
At least a cinematography nod.
At the I was at a premiere recently. Now, I have not seen Cloud Atlas yet. I was supposed to go to a screening. Something came up. I couldn't go, and I've not had a chance to get around to go see it yet. I was talking to a couple of studio people who were not of the same studio, which Cloud Atlas. So take that with a grain of salt. Okay. So they're from a competing studio. But they saw it, and their big complaint was basically something I've heard from several people, which was, hey, you know what? You don't get A's for effort. And like the big complaint was coherently, this film did not work.
That's not
true. They
true.
said they had too much. It had far too much going on.
No.
That did not create a unity throughout the film.
That's not true.
And I've heard some people say that. I have not seen it. I have not seen it.
I don't do this, John,
Roth
like
loves
you
it.
do. Normally, you're wrong.
Whoa,
Period.
fighting words.
You're just wrong. That movie is not incoherent at all. At all.
Okay. I haven't seen it, so I can't disagree with you. I can't disagree with you on that. I'm just saying that's
continued.
The objections that I'm hearing, those are the objections.
Okay.
But anyway, let's move on to the
You're
next question.
wrong, competing studio who's jealous.
Yeah, you do not say you can't take what they say. You have to take what they say with a grain of salt. Obviously, they're a little
obviously
biased.
Warner
Yeah,
is biased
because they
too, so
want
who do you trust?
I mean, I think that the films that we're looking towards in the next couple of months that will also be contenders will be Les Mis. I haven't seen it, but just from my understanding of it,
I'm excited for it.
The Hobbit.
Yes.
You know, maybe, but there's 3 of them, so maybe
Cinematography.
You know
not.
what really
Again.
messed things up for Oscar predictors was The Great Gatsby moving to next year.
Yeah.
That really messed things up for Oscar predictions. I was talking to Chris Tapley, who's our Oscar seasons expert, and he was saying, that threw everybody for the now. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis getting a Best Actor nomination, that's a lock, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, really, it changed the landscape of the Oscar season this year. To me, there are 3 films that really stand out. I'm sure there are more, but since I haven't had a chance to sit down and think about this, Argo, definitely.
Yeah, no question.
I'm surprisingly not everybody loved it, but The Grey for me.
I was just going to say.
I would nominate The Grey at this point.
The Grey for Oscar?
Yes,
I would nominate The Grey for Oscar.
Absolutely. I was just going to say one of my favorite movies that still sticks with me. I saw it in January and I haven't seen it again. Is The Grey. I love that movie.
Yeah. And look, I'm sure this will change by the end of the year. There's still many of the big Oscar contenders. Les Mis.
Yeah.
I'm anticipating The Hobbit like this much more than Les Mis right now. The Les Mis to me looks awesome. But to me, as of right now, today, the best film of the year is still The Avengers. The Avengers is still the best film of the year, in my opinion.
I know that one of the films that may get I'm doing predictions about what I think, by the way, will get nominations, not necessarily what I think should, other than when I said Cloud Atlas should and The Grey should, in my opinion. But I think Flight may.
Flight, okay, I'm not going to go into Flight.
I didn't say we can't go into Flight,
but Denzel?
I think it may have some Oscar love.
Let's put it this way. I will have no objection to Denzel Washington getting a Best Actor nomination.
Yes.
I'll have no objection to that.
I will have no objection to that either.
Right, let's move on last. So the last email of the day.
Hey, John. This is from Chad W. Hey, John. I've been a massive fan of yours for years, and I got to meet you at Comic-Con a few years ago. Your old podcast, Uncut, is probably the best podcast of all time. Hey, Chad, what up, man? A little bit of love over here. All right, moving on. At that time, you were working for yourself. So my question is, working for AMC, do you find that you are more limited on what you can do with podcasting, or do you find no difference? Please get the show back 2 times a week. Once is not enough. Thank you, Chad.
It's so funny that question gets asked right as we're getting off of saying, I can't talk about Flight.
Isn't that funny?
So funny.
Here's one of the neat things about, obviously, first of all, Chad, thank you very much. And one of the things I do love about Comic-Con so much is randomly bumping into people who for some reason recognize me and come up. That's so fun. It's so fun. But here's the thing. Working for AMC, and no longer working for myself. When I used to run the movie blog, I was my own boss for about 7 years. I ran it myself. I answered to nobody, so I could do and say whatever the hell I wanted. Working for another company, obviously that's going to be more limiting. My big concern had always been when considering starting to work with AMC was how limiting will it be? And as you can tell from this show, we will speak negatively of things. We will say this was terrible, that sucked. But here's the only limit. You know what? AMC as a company has been so fabulous to us. I mentioned before that AMC has never once, ever asked me or any of my staff to say something positive about something that we didn't actually feel positive about. Never have they put that pressure on us. And I know some other people get that pressure. They've never given us that. Also, they've given us complete freedom, really, to say what we want with this one condition, and it's a condition I understand and agree with. We don't talk negatively about films that are currently or about to be in AMC theaters. Yeah. That is a straight up conflict of interest. And I get that. I agree with that. So, in 2 months, you'll hear me talk about Flight. But so right now, while Flight is in AMC theaters, all AMC has asked me, and it makes sense, that, hey, Flight is in our theaters. We don't want you talking negatively about it. But at the same time, they don't come to me and say, hey, John, Flight's in our theaters. Yeah. Talk about great things about how wonderful Flight is.
Yeah.
They've never asked me to do that. I respect this company so much. It's why I'm still here working for them. And but I do miss the expletive-filled rants I was able to go on when I used to do Uncut working for myself.
Because you don't rant now at all.
Oh no,
no. You do PG rants.
I do PG rants.
Maybe PG-13 at times.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's like there's a window of like once the film's been out of theaters for a few weeks, we're pretty much allowed to say how we feel about it.
Exactly.
You know?
Well, once it's not a conflict of interest anymore.
And it's the same of all ticketing sites. It's the same thing.
Again,
same intention.
To your point, to me, is like, it's funny because I've had sort of colleagues talk to me about that, and I'm like, well, I'm not 5 years old. It's a job. It's a business. The business is selling movie tickets. Like, I'm not going to act like a child and think that that's unreasonable request for the company that you work for, that you simply refrain from saying anything negative. But yeah, anything positive that we're saying is totally legit.
Yeah,
and you're not saying
absolutely.
anything you don't believe in.
You know?
And you know, some people have said to me before, oh, you only talk so glowingly about AMC because you work for them. And I'm gonna tell you this. This is the truth. I'm actually might get in trouble for saying this, but this is the absolute truth. I don't say great things about AMC Theatres because I work for them. I work for AMC Theatres because I think great things about them. And I mean that wholeheartedly and straight up. Like anybody working in any job situation, I have my frustrations, whatever, but I'm telling you, I mean, I've been offered other jobs from other companies, sometimes made offers right in front of my boss's face. That being said, but I stay with AMC and I come to work with AMC because I wholeheartedly believe this is the best film exhibitor in the business. I believe this is the best movie theater chain in the business. Do I have my frustrations like anybody working at any job? Dennis and Roth will attest to the fact that yes, I do. But that being said, I just believe AMC is the best. I love working with this company. I love this company, and they've always been great to us as far as what we've been allowed to do here.
They support independent. One of my favorite
things.
things.
AMCI is my favorite thing.
Supports independent film, which is one of the things that I've always loved, been most proud of, like been so excited about with this company. A few weeks ago, there was I was so happy about this.
The 2-for-1.
The 2-for-1 for Seven
Brilliant.
Psychopaths.
Yeah.
Which is this film. Oh, I can't believe I forgot about it. That's a film. I mean, nobody saw it, but it's a film I love, and I was so happy to see the company give people
really
the opportunity.
Really smart promotion.
To have more people go see it.
And you're doing the wide release of Back to the Future, all that kind of the Best Picture Showcase, which we talked about earlier, the AMC Stubs program, which we've never talked about on the show, but you should go check it out. It's a brilliant loyalty program that you should really go and check out. I mean, so many things I love about AMC, but I'm not going to turn this into an AMC plug, although this show is brought to you by AMC
Theaters. No, that was all legit, and it feels...
That's all legit.
Feels good.
But listen, we got to wrap things up here. We've crossed the hour mark. I want to thank you guys so much for joining us. And once again, stop what you're doing. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click subscribe. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, you see the button appearing. Move your mouse over that button and click subscribe. If not, look at the top of the player, click subscribe. Hit the like button. Bring up our ratings on this video. Share this video. Click the share button. Put it on your Facebook page. Spread the word around about AMC Movie Talk. We'd really appreciate it. I want to thank, as always, especially we're recording actually this show on Wednesday. We started recording this at 7:30 this morning.
Yep.
I really want to thank Amirose Eisenbach for being willing to come in at 7:30 in the morning. Whoever you had to kick out of bed this morning to get moving, I'm grateful to them as well.
Hey-o.
Thank you to Roth Cornett.
Hey, on this most magical days of years, and given the Magic Castle thing, I just want to do a shout out to one of my favorite actors, Neil Patrick Harris, who is really into magic and gave me tickets to the Magic Castle.
Oh,
that's right. That's right.
So your first time.
Well, let's discuss later.
We'll keep discussing.
Thank you, the man who runs everything right over there, Mr. Dennis Zen. Dennis, thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
And hey, don't forget, go check out Wreck-It Ralph this weekend. I cannot tell you enough how awesome this movie is. I've seen it twice already. It is so bloody fantastic.
Yeah.
Go
So
and
clever.
see it. And thank you again. Until next time, my name's John Campia. Bye-bye.